see behind me is the Armenian monument, the orphans that Turkish government created. They built this monument. Okay. Can you tell us your name and where you live now?
Yes, my name is Armenian and I live in Glendale, California.
So why are you here today?
I'm here to remember the 1.5 million lives that were lost on April 24th, 1915.
And can you your root, your family, where they came from?
Yes, of course. My family, my parents were born and raised in Tehran, Iran. But of course, we have roots in Armenia. My great-grandparents survived the Armenian Genocide. And they moved to Iran where they started a new life.
Which city in Turkey when they happened?
I don't know.
Okay.
I do know that my great-grandfather had to bury his family members with his bare hands.
Okay, well, you don't have to tell your name, but just tell us your root, where they came from, like your mother, your father, your grandfather.
Well, obviously, I'm Armenian, a pure 100% Armenian. Like my roots, of course, from old Armenia, Turkey, nowadays Turkey, occupied lands.
Which city?
My mom is from Vanetsi, and my father and from Chargalatsi, and all now in Turkey, unfortunately. But I respect this day. I honor not only this day, it's the whole month of April as a commemoration for our martyrs. I consider them the saints, all of them saints. I used to hear stories from my late grandmother telling us how she's been deported and along with her family, and how they survived along the deserts, and they came to Iraq and they settled there. So I'm proud survivor of an Armenian.
Thank you. Can you tell us where your roots comes from?
Oh, my roots, I think I'm coming from Lebanon. I'm here in the United States since 1988. And since then, every year, April 24, we come to Montebello city and we commemorate Armenian Genocide. It's very important to participate in this event yearly basis. This year is the 99th year. As of yet, United States not recognized the genocide. Hopefully, in the future, President Obama will recognize Armenian genocide, because we would like to have that. This year we have done several events in DC and Sacramento as well. We were asking them to have justice and reparation. There is a resolution that will be passed by the Congress and the Senate, and we are looking forward to have that pass resolutions.
What do you think about yesterday Turkish Prime Minister condolences to Armenia? Did you hear that?
I read it, but I didn't get the impression that was a good approach for us, because still they have to admit they have done this genocide, and they have to sit down with Armenians and make a reparation. It's not. We passed already the Armenian genocide resolution that period. Hopefully by next year, by the end of the year, Turkish government also will realize that they have done a big mistake, and they will accept their mistake and sit down with the Armenians and return our lands to us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Քայլերները Ամերիկայի եւ մեր հայրենիքի քայլերները շնորհակալություն.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch, we're so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Hayrenik azadangah vorabrele taretar yure vortika arkançume azadangah hayastan yure vortika arkançume azadangah hayastan amen ein der mahmiye mart mi ankam bitmerni hayt yerani voryoraski azadut yan gözovi hayt yerani voryoraski azadut yan gözovi.
Սկաուտներ, պատրաստ, թրոշակագիր, աջ, թարց, քայլարաջ, on.
The master of ceremony for today, a board member for the United Armenian Council, our own Peter Haik. Peter.
And Turkey. Yes, I said Turkey. It's a matter of time, ladies and gentlemen. Note that even though the US has not officially recognized the Armenian Genocide yet, we have to acknowledge that 43 out of the 50 states have independently recognized the Armenian Genocide.
Tell us about who you are and your organization.
I am Hasmik Baran, and I'm one of the organizing committee of the United Armenian Council of Los Angeles. And our committee, United Armenian Council of Los Angeles, comprised 55 different organizations, charitable organizations, 55 organizations, being all from the religious denominations. They are Western Prelacy, Western Diocese, Armenian Catholic Church, and the Armenian Evangelical churches, and many other compatriotic organizations and charitable organizations, Armenian Youth Federation, and all that.
What dignitary you're expecting today?
We are expecting Adam Schiff. We will have our keynote speaker as the mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti, mayor. We are expecting Paul Krikorian, council member, and the state controller Cheng, Mr. Cheng.
How many people do you expect today?
We are expecting a couple of thousand people, 3,000 to 5,000 people. That's our expectations.
So you guys must put in lots of work to organize.
Lots of work, lots of organizing, lots of details to take care of behind the scenes, which is not very visible.
Yeah. What do you think about yesterday Turkish Prime Minister condolences? Do you take face value? Or?
At this time, I will take it at face value, and it's a kind deed also. It's a step positive, I think.
Okay.
Acknowledging at least that something bad had happened first time. Yeah. So I think that is a positive step that we considered.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
As As the first speaker and one of the champions of the Armenian cause, I'd like to invite Congressman Mr. Adam Schiff.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you here today, to remember those who were lost in the genocide, the first genocide of the last century. Many of you may have seen that Prime Minister Erdogan spoke about what he euphemistically described yesterday as the events of 1915. And he said that, yes, Armenian lives were lost, but then so too were Turkish lives. He said that Turkey welcomes a dialogue about the events of 1915, but what kind of dialogue can you have in a country where mere discussion of the genocide is a criminal act? How can you compare the loss of Turkish life during World War I to a deliberate effort to annihilate an entire people? It would be as if Germany claimed that, well, yes, German lives were lost during World War II, just as Jewish lives were. Yes, many German civilians were killed. But that is a far different issue than the fact that the Nazi Germans made an effort to exterminate an entire people and came, as in the case of the Armenians, perilously close to success. 2 weeks ago, I wrote a letter to the Turkish people. I sent it to all the major newspapers in Turkey. We sent it in English to the English language papers. We sent it in Turkish to the Turkish language papers. As you might expect, none of them would publish it. This in that pluralistic democratic society that the Prime Minister described yesterday. And who can blame them for not publishing it when the publication of such a statement would itself potentially cost the newspaper the loss of its license to print? But I'd like to share with you that letter today as I shared it on the House floor 2 weeks ago. It is an open letter to the Turkish people. Today I write to you on a topic of great importance to both our nations. It is on a subject that many of you, especially the younger generation, may know little about because it concerns a chapter of world history that your government has expended enormous efforts to conceal. Turkey has been at the center of human civilization from Neolithic times to the present, and your arts, culture, and science have enriched the world. But interwoven with all of Turkey's remarkable achievements is a dark chapter that too many of today's Turks know little or nothing about. Were you aware that your grandparents and great-grandparents had many Armenian neighbors and friends, that 20% of the population of today's Istanbul was Armenian? Did you know that the Armenians were well integrated into Turkish society as celebrated intellects, artists, craftsmen, and community leaders? Have you ever wondered what happened to the Armenians? Have you ever asked your parents and grandparents how such a large, industrious, and populous people largely vanished from your midst? Do you know why your government has gone to such lengths to conceal this part of your history? Let me tell you a part of their story. The rest you must find out for yourselves. 99 years ago this month, in the dying years of the Ottoman Empire, the young Turk government launched a campaign of deportation, expropriation, starvation, and murder against the empire's Armenian citizens. Much of the Armenian population was forcibly removed to Syria, where many succumbed during brutal forced marches through the desert heat. Hundreds of thousands were massacred by Ottoman gendarmes, soldiers, and even ordinary citizens. By the time the slaughter ended in 1923, 1.5 million Armenians had been killed in now what is universally acknowledged as the first genocide of the 20th century. The survivors scattered throughout the Middle East and the wider world, with some making their way to the United States and to Los Angeles. It is their grandchildren and great-grandchildren whom I represent as a member of the U.S. Congress. Theirs is a vibrant community, many tens of thousands strong, with schools, churches, and businesses providing a daily link to their ancestral homeland. And it is on their behalf that I urge you to begin anew a national conversation in Turkey about the events of 1915 through 1923. As a young man or woman in Turkey, you might ask, what has this to do with me? Am I to blame for a crime that was committed long before I was born? And I would say this: yours is the moral responsibility to acknowledge the truth and to seek a reconciliation with the Armenian people that your parents and their parents could or would not. It is an obligation that you have inherited and one from which you must not shrink. For though we cannot choose our own history, we decide what to do about it, and you will be the ones to shape Turkey's future. At the end of World War II, Germany was a shattered nation, defeated in battle and exposed as history's greatest war criminal. But in the decades since the end of the war, Germany engaged in a prolonged effort to reconcile with the Jewish people who were nearly exterminated by the Nazis during the Holocaust. The German government has prosecuted war criminals, returned expropriated property, allied itself with Israel, and made countless apologies to victims and to the world. Most important, Germany has worked to expunge the cancer of dehumanizing bigotry and hatred that gave rise to the Holocaust. This path of reflection, reconciliation, and repentance must be Turkey's path as well. It will not be easy. The questions will be painful, the answers difficult, sometimes unknowable. One question stands out. How could a nation that peaceably ruled over a diverse multicultural empire for centuries have turned on one of its own people with such ruthlessness that an entirely new word had to be invented to describe what took place? Genocide. As in Judaism and Christianity, the concept of repentance, or tawbah, is central to Islam. Next year will mark a century since the beginning of the genocide, and Armenians around the world will mourn their dead, contemplate the enormity of their loss, and ask why. Answer them, please, with words of repentance. Sincerely, Adam Schiff, Member of Congress. When we gather here next year for the 100th anniversary, I hope and pray that Turkey will answer your call with words of repentance, with acts of recognition and restitution. And I hope also that the greatest nation on earth will live up to its historic ideals as a champion of human rights, and the United States of America will recognize clearly, unequivocally, and without hesitation the Armenian Genocide. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much.
Your history, your background, where your mother, father, parents, grandparents came from. What city, from where?
Okay, so անունս Շուշան Քևրանյան Բաղբուդարյան է եւ ես I'm sorry, my name is Shushan Kevranyan Bagbudarian. I was born and raised in Jerusalem. I come from survivors who went through the desert and ended up in Aleppo, and then my father's family moved to Jerusalem from there, and that's where I was born. And I would hear my grandmother saying the stories of what atrocities they went through at the genocide in the desert, and it just kills every one of us. And
where, from which cities in Turkey?
Antep. Both my parents, both their ancestors, everybody else way back are from Antep, and they all went through the genocide. My grandmother lost all of her family, and she was one of the survivors, and she would tell us the story every day.